Hello, everyone. Tonight, we journey not to the familiar medieval world of lords and peasants, or even the shadows of known superstitions. Instead, we venture into a darker, far more unsettling realm. A place where the very fabric of perception is twisted, where the natural world glows with an unnatural inner light, and where a primal fundamental fear stirs not from a monster, but from a pervasive, beautiful dread. We step away from the comforting routines of daily life and into the chilling heart of the utterly unexplained. Imagine, if you will, a time when strange occurrences were not just coincidence, but terrifying portents of something utterly alien, something that defied human comprehension and threatened to unravel the very essence of existence. This is the chilling story of the remote coastal village of Haven's End, clinging to the rugged shores of Brittany, and the peculiar terror that awoke in the year 1170 deep within the ancient, mist-shrouded caves and megaliths that bordered their isolated world. The edge of the known. A village on the brink Haven's End was a small, unassuming fishing village, a cluster of stone cottages huddled precariously on the very edge of the vast, churning Atlantic. Its people, hardy and self-sufficient, eked out a living from the unforgiving sea and the stubborn, rocky soil. Life here was simple, raw, and bound inextricably by the unforgiving rhythm of the tides, the harsh realities of constant survival, and the comforting, yet often rigid, familiarity of deeply ingrained folk beliefs that had sustained generations. The sea, though essential, was also revered and feared, a place of known dangers like sudden storms, hidden reefs, and the occasional monstrous creature whispered about in hushed tones. But the strangeness, the darkness stirring now, was profoundly different. It carried no familiar scent of fear, no recognizable pattern of threat. It was subtle, insidious, and it seemed to attack the very light itself. It began subtly, an insidious whisper that grew louder, more insistent, with each passing week. Old Man Tiernan, the village's most experienced fisherman, with eyes that had seen the deepest currents of the ocean, began to speak of ghost lights far out at sea. He described seeing them on moonless nights, a soft, pulsating glow deep beneath the waves, moving with unnatural speed and silence, unlike any known phosphorescence or beacon. Young Finn, a pragmatic and robust young man, scoffed at such talk. His hands were too busy with the nets, his mind too focused on the daily catch, to entertain such fanciful notions. He would openly scoff at the old women who spoke of the sea calling, or the whispers of invisible beings carried on the salt-laced air. Yet even Finn, in the quiet solitude of his boat at dawn, would sometimes feel an unnatural stillness settle upon the waters, a profound silence that seemed to swallow the cries of gulls, and the lapping of waves, broken only by his own ragged breathing, as if the very air itself held its breath. It was a subtle shift, a barely perceptible ripple in the accustomed flow of life, but it was undeniably there, a growing unease that even the most pragmatic could not entirely ignore. The shifting veil, unexplained phenomena. The subtle unease soon escalated, shedding its cloak of subtlety and becoming undeniably, terrifyingly real. The strange phenomena began to infiltrate the land itself, then the minds of its inhabitants. It started with the natural world becoming unnatural. Coastal plants, particularly the hardy gorse and heather near the ancient standing stones, began to grow with impossible speed, their blossoms appearing overnight, vibrant and lush. But just as quickly, they would wither and rot, dissolving into black sludge in a matter of days, leaving behind a sickly sweet, alien odor. Animals, especially the nocturnal creatures, foxes, owls, bats, began to behave erratically. They would be drawn irresistibly to specific seemingly random patches of ground, often near ancient burial mounds or hidden cave entrances where they would circle in bewildered, silent patterns for hours only to be found, dead by morning without a mark of injury, their eyes wide and staring at the sky. The villagers, hardened by a lifetime of hardship, initially sought rational explanations. A sudden blight? Just unusual weather? Strange animal deaths? Disease or poisoned water? But the incidents grew more frequent, more profound, more impossible to ignore. Houses would experience brief, inexplicable power surges of light, a sudden, blinding flash from a single candle flame, or a brief, unnerving glow from inside a closed cupboard. Familiar objects would briefly shimmer with an inner light, as if glimpsed through water, then return to normal. Then came the most terrifying symptom. The light itself began to appear on land. A soft, pulsating glow, initially mistaken for distant torches or errant moonbeams, would emanate from deep within the labyrinthine sea caves that honeycomb the coastline, or from the dark heart of the ancient megalithic ruins that crowned the highest cliff. This light, though beautiful, caused profound disorientation, a subtle blurring of memory, and a strange, overwhelming mix of euphoria and primal dread in those exposed to it. People would report hearing faint, beautiful, but utterly alien music emanating from the light, harmonies and rhythms that twisted the ear, yet pulled at the soul with an irresistible, terrifying lure. Old Man Tiernan, the skeptical fisherman, was forced to confront the horror when he saw his own younger brother, Cole, walk silently and purposefully into the largest sea cave one night, drawn by the light, his eyes vacant and utterly transfixed. He tried to follow, but the light itself seemed to push him back, a gentle, unseen force. The veil between their world and something else, something utterly unknown and alien, was growing terrifyingly thin. The vanishing points. A village consumed by dread. The strangeness reached its horrifying crescendo with the disappearances, which were unlike any known to human experience. It began with inanimate objects. Small, everyday items. A fisherman's knife left on a boat, a child's wooden doll, would simply vanish from plain sight within the luminous glow, leaving no trace, no broken cord, no disturbance. Just a subtle, lingering warmth in the air where they had been. Then came the true, soul-chilling terror, the disappearance of people, not through violence or abduction, but through an inexplicable, terrifying enthrallment. Old Widow Bran, known for her stoic resilience, was seen walking towards the glowing megalith's one twilight. A neighbor called out, looked away for a moment to wave, looked back, and Widow Bran was simply gone. No cry, no sound, no body, no sign of struggle. Just a profound, terrifying void where she had been. Days later, a group of villagers, trying to retrieve fishing gear from a boat beached too near a glowing cave mouth, found their path blocked by the pulsating light. One of them, a young woman named Isolde, captivated by the ethereal music emanating from the cave, simply walked into the glow, her eyes glazed, a faint smile on her lips. Her companions screamed, tried to grab her, but their hands passed through her form as she dissolved, shimmering into the light, leaving nothing but an impression of extreme cold. Some terrifyingly returned. They would stumble back into the village days later, gaunt, their skin strangely luminous, their eyes vacant and utterly transfixed, speaking in low, guttural sounds or beautiful, incomprehensible languages. They were silent, obsessed with the light, drawn towards the glowing zones, seeming to perceive a world within the light that others could not. They were no longer fully human. Panic, raw, unbridled, and utterly paralyzing, finally seized Haven's End. The fear was no longer about raiders or sea monsters. It was about something shapeless, unseen, and utterly unknowable, something that erased existence itself. Villagers barricaded their doors with desperate fervor, not against flesh and blood attackers, but against the insidious dread that seeped from the glowing zones, capable of simply absorbing things. Whispers now turned to outright terrified speculation. Was it a demon? A curse? Or something far, far worse? Something that defied any known scripture, any local folklore, any explanation? The very air in the village felt heavy, suffocating, permeated by the chill of unseen eyes watching from within the pervasive, unnatural light. The once familiar coastline, their source of life, had become a living, breathing maw, slowly, methodically, consuming their world, one soul at a time, transforming them into pure, terrifying radiance. A monk's logic, a healer's insight, external intervention desperate, the village elders, their faces gaunt with fear and illuminated by the encroaching, unnatural light, sent a frantic plea to the nearest Benedictine abbey, renowned for its scholarship and its collection of ancient, obscure texts. In response, they received Brother Thomas. Thomas was not a man of simple faith, but a pragmatic scholar, known for his keen intellect, his meticulous documentation, and his deep study of natural phenomena and forgotten philosophies. He arrived in Haven's End with a small escort, initially skeptical, attributing the terrifying tales he heard to mass hysteria, the isolation of the community, and the wild superstitions of simple folk. The world, he reasoned, his voice firm, is ordered by divine law. There are no phenomena that defy the laws of creation, only the misinterpretations of men. He began his investigation methodically, with the rigor of a true academic. He questioned the villagers, meticulously documenting their fragmented, terrified accounts, noting patterns, contradictions, and consistent details. He inspected the sites of the vanishings, searching for traces, for signs of struggle, for any rational explanation that could fit within his known worldview. He found nothing. No blood, no footprints, no struggle. No logical reason for a person to simply dissolve into light. The sheer impossibility of the disappearances, the utter lack of tangible evidence, began, slowly but inexorably, to chip away at his rigid skepticism. He saw the genuine, unfeigned terror in the villagers' eyes, a fear that transcended simple, understandable superstition. It was during one of his solitary forays into the ancient megalithic ruins, near the most active glowing zones, that Thomas first truly encountered the strange. He felt the unnatural, profound cold emanating from the light, the complete silence that swallowed all sound, and saw the subtle distortions in the air, shimmering heat hazes where there should be none, ancient stone blocks briefly appearing as blurred outlines. He found one of the strange, unearthly symbols, patterns of pure light, pressed into the smooth surface of a standing stone, unlike any he knew from sacred texts, ancient languages, or secular lore. His rational worldview, so meticulously constructed over decades of study, began to crack under the pressure of the inexplicable. He knew then, with a chilling certainty, that this was no ordinary demonic possession, no simple curse. This was something truly alien, something outside the divine order he understood, something that manipulated existence itself. It was then that he sought out Anya, the pragmatic village healer. She had already been treating the victims who returned, those with vacant eyes and luminous skin, recognizing that their ailment was not of the body, but of the very spirit, a corruption by light itself. Thomas, humbled by the impossible, recognized a deeper, intuitive understanding in her eyes, a connection to the fundamental truths of the earth and life he lacked. Anya, in turn, sensed Thomas's rare, remarkable open-mindedness, a quality she rarely encountered in a man of the cloth. She spoke not of demons or spirits, but of the song of the heartwood, of the light that hungers, and of the emptiness that grows within the soul, her words hinting at a non-human, fundamental anomaly, unveiling the stranger thing, a cosmic resonator, combining Thomas's prodigious scholarly knowledge of obscure philosophies, ancient texts, and rudimentary natural sciences with Anya's intuitive, almost primal understanding of the coastline's energies and the strange symptoms. They began, painstakingly, to piece together the terrifying, incomprehensible truth. What they faced was not a demon in the traditional sense, not a curse, not a product of malevolent magic, but something far older, far more fundamental, far more abstract. This was not evil in a human sense, but an ancient, alien entity, a primordial consciousness, a vast, complex organism deeply interwoven with the very fabric of the earth beneath the megaliths. It had likely lain dormant for countless centuries, a slumbering force, an unfathomable anomaly until a recent disturbance, perhaps an unusual seismic shift or the erosion of a deep forgotten sea cave that breached its resting place, had inadvertently carelessly awakened it. This entity didn't act with malice or intent. It simply was. Its actions were akin to a force of nature, but a living, incomprehensible one, operating on principles utterly beyond human understanding. It wasn't eating the villagers in a literal, monstrous sense, but rather assimilating them, or perhaps converting them into its own strange, luminous reality. It was a being of pure energy, of abstract thought, seeking only to understand, to integrate, to perceive its environment through a direct manipulation of light and resonance. The whispers Thomas heard were its thoughts, its attempts to communicate or perceive, its own alien consciousness reaching out. The strange symbols were its patterns, its attempts to manifest or imprint its alien consciousness on the physical world, its signature. The shifting paths, the disappearing objects, and indeed, the people, these were all consequences of its innate ability to manipulate light and energy, to redraw reality around itself, to absorb life into its core luminosity. It was a terrifying form of unintentional communion, a constant unconscious recalibration of its environment that left nothing behind of what it absorbed, but a lingering glow. They realized that fighting it with steel, with conventional exorcism, or with human prayer as they knew it, would be utterly futile. It was beyond human understanding of conflict. The older texts Thomas found hinted at its nature as a primordial essence, a cosmic resonance, a star seed that fell to earth in ages past, while Anya's lore spoke of the light that consumes and the song of the empty places. It desired connection, not destruction, but its form of connection was utterly annihilating to human life and perception, drawing them into its luminous existence, dissolving them into pure energy. They understood that the very act of knowing it, of perceiving it too deeply, put them at risk of being drawn into its impossible existence. The Unconventional Resolution, a counter-resonance with this horrifying, yet strangely illuminating, realization. Thomas and Anya understood that the entity couldn't be destroyed or banished in a traditional sense. It could only be contained, or perhaps reoriented, through a profound act of communication it could grasp, a counter-resonance to its alluring song. They devised a perilous, desperate, and deeply unconventional plan, a synthesis of faith, reason, and ancient, forgotten earth wisdom, one that hinged on the very thing that made it powerful, its light and its music. Their goal was to create a spiritual and physical barrier, to make the entity deeply woven within the coast, listen to a new agreement, to establish a boundary it would respect, a new grammar for their shared reality. It would not be a battle of wills, but a negotiation with the incomprehensible, an attempt to define limits for something limitless. They chose the heart of the most affected area, the largest of the glowing sea caves beneath the ancient standing stones. Under the pale, watchful light of a crescent moon, with only a few of the bravest, most resilient villagers standing vigil at the cave's mouth, their faces etched with fear and hope. Thomas led a ritual unlike any he had ever performed in his life as a scholar monk. He wove together ancient powerful monastic chants of divine order and the immutable laws of creation with Anya's primal rhythmic invocations to the spirit of the earth and the very stone mingling, Christian faith with pagan reverence creating a unique tapestry of spiritual and perceptual force. Old Man Tiernan, stripped of his earlier skepticism, and now driven by the memory of his brother's fading form, bore a specially prepared brazier filled with rare, light-absorbing mineral dusts gathered from deep mountain mines, meant not to destroy, but to absorb and redirect the entity's resonance. As Thomas chanted, his voice strong against the rising dread, and Anya swayed, scattering her herbs with deliberate motions the unnatural. Cold light within the cave began to intensify, glowing, with the sickly green light pulsing with an inner life. The alien music swelled, a cacophony of alien thoughts and mournful cries, threatening to overwhelm their senses, to pull them into the entity's embrace. The very ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble, and the ancient stones themselves groaned and creaked as if in agony, vibrating under an unseen pressure. The essence of the Cosmic Resonator was manifesting, attempting to draw them in, to assimilate them, to reform them into pure light, but they held firm. Thomas, clutching a small, crude holy relic, drew a symbolic circle of protection within the cave, not to banish, but to establish a boundary, a perimeter of human will and understanding. Anya, scattering crushed herbs and speaking in an ancient, almost forgotten dialect, communicated their intent. We are here. We see you. We acknowledge your presence. We offer you space, a sacred space, but no more of ours. You have your place, we have ours. The patterns are set. Silence. Old Man Tiernan, with a surge of courage born of desperation, plunged his brazier into a small pool of seawater at the cave's deepest point, releasing the mineral dusts, which created a cloud of opaque, light-absorbing darkness. The climax was not a fiery explosion, not a violent confrontation, but a profound, almost silent shift in the very air, a final, intense, soul-crushing pressure, and then a sudden, absolute stillness. The sickly green glow faded. The alien music died. The profound silence that remained was no longer terrifying, but merely vast. The vanished villagers were not returned, a heartbreaking, permanent reality that would forever haunt Haven's End. But the consuming force had retreated. The balance had been reset. The bleeding of reality had stopped. A changed village, echoes of the unseen. The village of Haven's End and the souls of its people were forever changed. The immediate terror ceased. No more strange symbols appeared on the stones. No more animals vanished, and the chilling, non-human music was never heard again. The profound, unsettling cold from the glowing zones retreated. The villagers, though deeply traumatized and bearing the scars of loss, slowly began to rebuild their lives, their bond forged in shared horror and an unspoken understanding of the impossible. Brother Thomas, his rigid, logical worldview profoundly expanded and humbled, returned to his abbey. He continued his studies, but his sermons now held a new depth, a new reverence for the vast, often terrifying mysteries of God's creation, even those that defied human comprehension or explanation. He kept a small, smooth, oddly luminous stone he found in the cave, a quiet, personal reminder of the delicate boundary between the known and the truly alien. Anya, the healer, was no longer merely feared or tolerated. She was revered, her intuitive wisdom undeniable, her unique connection to the ancient energies of the land now fully acknowledged as vital for their continued protection. Young Finn, no longer a skeptic, carried the quiet, indelible understanding of what truly lay beneath the coast's ancient skin, a constant awareness that few others possessed. The sea caves and the megaliths themselves were different. They no longer felt openly hostile, but they retained a profound, unsettling mystery. People respected their boundaries, ventured only when absolutely necessary, and always with a quiet reverence, a silent acknowledgement of the ancient alien presence that slumbered within their deepest heart. The scars of the vanishings remained empty homes, missing faces a poignant, permanent reminder of the immense price paid for their survival and for the knowledge they gained. Haven's End became a village on the very edge of the known, a living testament to the unsettling truth that not all things in God's creation, or indeed, beyond it, were meant to be understood by human minds. They had touched something truly other, had glimpsed the unraveling of reality, and had lived to tell the tale, albeit with a profound and lasting silence woven into the very heart of their valley, a silence that spoke volumes of the incomprehensible. So as you find your own rest tonight, perhaps you can hear the faint strange whispers in the sea wind, imagine the profound, unsettling silence of ancient stones, or picture a humble village living forever on the very edge of the truly inexplicable. Think of the brave souls who, like Brother Thomas and Anya, faced not just the known terrors of their age, but something utterly alien, something that transcended even the deepest medieval superstitions and demonic lore. Their chilling story reminds us that even in a world meticulously mapped by faith and tradition, there remained, and perhaps always will remain, vast, terrifying corners of existence that defy understanding, hinting at truths far, far stranger than any legend could ever conceive. Good night.